The year is 1353 BC. In the sun-baked palaces of Thebes, a crown prince ascends the throne as Amenhotep IV, his skin glistening under the relentless Egyptian sun, his eyes fixed on a horizon that no pharaoh before him dared to chase. The Nile flows eternally below, carrying the lifeblood of an empire that has stood for millennia, its waters whispering secrets of gods and kings. But this morning, as the young ruler lifts his arms to the dawn, something shifts. Not in the river's current, but in the very soul of Egypt. He doesn't pray to Amun, the hidden god of wind and fertility, whose temples tower like mountains of stone. He doesn't bow to Osiris, lord of the afterlife, or Isis, the mother who weaves magic from sorrow. No. He turns his face to the Aten, the solar disk, radiant and alone in the sky. And in that moment, he begins to unravel everything. The priests watch from the shadows, their incense curling like question marks. The people murmur in the markets, trading rumors like beads of lapis lazuli. What they don't know, what no one could foresee, is that this pharaoh's revolution isn't just about gods. It's about bodies, about desires that twist like the coils of a cobra, about practices so intimate, so forbidden, that history itself would try to bury them beneath the sands. Not with fire or flood, but with silence, erasure, the kind of quiet that swallows screams. Because what Akhenaten did behind the veils of his palace wasn't mere conquest of faith. It was a conquest of flesh, a reshaping of what it meant to be man, woman, god, lover. Historians have pieced together fragments, statues with hips that curve like a queen's, tombs etched with embraces that blur the lines of family and forbidden passion. But these aren't just artifacts. They're echoes of a terror that gripped the royal court, a shadow that lingered long after his death. If you've ever wondered why some kings are remembered as heroes and others as heretics, why certain desires vanish from the scrolls while others are etched in gold, you're in the right place. Here on Crimson Historians, we unearth the forbidden archives, the whispers from the Valley of the Kings, the DNA strands pulled from mummies that refuse to stay silent. Every view, every like, every subscription drags one more hidden truth into the light. Now, let's step into the heart of Amarna, the city he built for his sun god, because the Aten's rays are about to reveal something far darker than daylight. To understand the terrifying sexual practices of Pharaoh Akhenaten, you need to grasp the machine he dismantled. For over 1,000 years, Egypt's pharaohs ruled as gods incarnate, bridges between the mortal world and the divine pantheon. They married sisters, daughters, to keep the blood pure, echoing the sibling unions of Osiris and Isis, who birthed the world from their embrace. Sex wasn't sin, it was sacrament. Fertility rites filled the temples, priests invoking Hathor with dances that mimicked the act of creation, kings spilling seed into the Nile to ensure the floods came rich and full. But Akhenaten saw something different. He wasn't content with multiplicity. He wanted singularity. In his 5th year on the throne, he changed his name to Akhenaten, effective for the Aten, and declared the solar disk the one true god. No more Amun-Ra with his hidden mysteries. No more fertility cults with their orgiastic echoes. The Aten was father and mother, creator without consort, light without shadow. And Akhenaten positioned himself as its sole prophet, its earthly embodiment. He built Akhetaten, horizon of the Aten, a gleaming new capital in the desert, far from Thebes' prying priests. In palaces of white limestone, he surrounded himself with his family. The enigmatic Nefertiti, his great royal wife, whose beauty rivaled the dawn. Their 6 daughters, born one after another like offerings to the sun. But look closer at the art he commissioned. The statues, the reliefs. They don't show a typical pharaoh, broad-shouldered and virile, smiting enemies with a mace. No. Akhenaten appears elongated, almost serpentine. His neck stretches like a swan's, his skull tapers unnaturally. His belly swells softly, his breasts hang full and feminine. His hips flare wide as if ready to bear life. His thighs are thick, his genitals ambiguous, sometimes veiled, sometimes absent altogether. In one colossal statue from Karnak, now shattered and reassembled in Cairo's museum, he stands naked, devoid of sexual organs entirely. Was this symbolism? A declaration that he was both mother and father to Egypt, embodying the Aten's androgyny? Or was it something more visceral, a reflection of a body that defied the norms of man or woman? Modern scholars whisper of genetic anomalies, aromatase, excess syndrome, turning male forms feminine, accelerating puberty in girls. DNA from his presumed mummy in KV-55 shows no clear deformities, but the art screams otherwise. Fringe theorists go further. Was Akhenaten intersex, born with traits of both sexes? Transgender, embracing a fluid identity in a world that demanded rigid divinity? These aren't idle speculations. They stem from the very images he left behind, carvings where he and Nefertiti appear almost interchangeable, their bodies mirroring each other in sensual curves. And in this reshaping, terror took root. For if the pharaoh was neither fully man nor woman, what boundaries remained for desire? Nefertiti wasn't just his wife, she was his mirror. Inscriptions call her, "The beautiful one has come," but reliefs show them entwined, lips brushing in ways that blur hierarchy. Their daughters appear precocious, breasts budding early, hips rounding before their time. Echoes, perhaps, of the same syndrome that shaped their father. But whispers from the tombs suggest darker unions. Akhenaten fathered no sons, or none that survived. In desperation, did he turn to his own blood? Historians like Edward Wente and James Allen propose he took daughters as consorts, mirroring his father Amenhotep III's marriage to Sitamun. Meritaten, the eldest, born in his early reign, rises in prominence. She's named Great Royal Wife, not to Akhenaten, officially, but to Smenkhkare, his mysterious co-regent. Yet artifacts from Tutankhamun's tomb list her alongside Akhenaten as consort. A box inscription pairs her with him intimately. And then there's Mekhetaten, the second daughter, dead at 12. Her tomb scene shows a childbed, a tiny infant emerging as she lies still. Was this her death in childbirth? And if so, whose child? Pop history books seize on this. Akhenaten, the heretic, impregnating his own daughter to sire an heir. A practice twisted from divine emulation into something profane. No direct records confirm it. Egyptians didn't chronicle such acts explicitly, but the ambiguity haunts. Sigmund Freud, in his wild theories, equated Akhenaten with Oedipus, the king who bedded his mother unknowingly. But here, it's daughters, deliberate, to preserve a lineage touched by the Aten's peculiar light. Imagine the court. Whispers in the corridors, as the pharaoh calls Meritaten to his chambers, her young form draped in linen, the sun god's rays piercing the windows like accusatory fingers. Nefertiti watching, perhaps complicit, her own role evolving. Some say she became Smenkhkare herself, adopting a male persona after Akhenaten's decline, ruling as co-regent. Reliefs show two kings embracing, Akhenaten and Smenkhkare, their poses intimate, lips nearly touching. Was this brotherly, or something more? Fringe authors claim homosexual bonds. Akhenaten and his possible brother or son entwined in passion, defying the fertility cults that demanded procreation. In a culture where same-sex acts existed but were rarely exalted, this would terrify the priests. The Aten demanded no consorts, so why should the pharaoh? These practices weren't just personal, they were political dynamite. By embodying androgyny, by blurring family lines, Akhenaten challenged Ma'at, the cosmic order. Incest kept blood pure, but with daughters so young it bordered on destruction. Relations with Smenkhkare, if true, subverted the pharaoh's role as fertile god-king. No wonder his successors erased him. Horemheb smashed his statues. Rameses II called him the criminal of Akhetaten. They didn't want martyrs, they wanted oblivion. But fragments survive. A stela in the Louvre showing Nefertiti on Akhenaten's lap, daughters in tow, intimacy spilling over. A coffin from KV-55, repurposed from female to male, Kia's perhaps then his. These are the ghosts. If this shakes you, if it makes you question how power twists desire, subscribe now, because the Aten's light didn't just illuminate, it burned. And we're only halfway through the shadows. As the palace shadows lengthen in Amarna, The Aten dips low, casting golden fingers across murals where bodies entwine in ways that defy explanation. But these aren't mere decorations. They're confessions etched in stone, silent screams from a court where desire wasn't private. It was doctrine. Akhenaten didn't just reform religion. He reformed intimacy itself, twisting it into a tool for his solar obsession. And the terror? It wasn't in the acts alone, but in how they echoed through generations, leaving scars on Egypt's soul that historians are only now beginning to trace. Picture Nefertiti, her bust in Berlin's museum staring out with eyes that have seen too much. She's not just a queen, she's the center of a web. Akhenaten elevated her to near-divine status, co-ruler in all but name. Reliefs from their boundary stelae show them side by side, offering to the Aten their daughters clustered like fragile blossoms. But look at the intimacy. Hands touching, bodies leaning close, almost merging. Some scholars, like Joyce Tildesley in her biography of Nefertiti, suggest their bond was profound, perhaps beyond conventional marriage. But others whisper of strain. With no sons born, pressure mounted. The Aten demanded perfection, a lineage as pure as sunlight. Enter the daughters. Meritaten I appears in inscriptions as Great Royal Wife, not to a stranger, but in contexts that blur lines. A scarab from the period lists her beside Akhenaten, titles intertwined. Was this symbolic or literal? Fringe historians like Emanuel Velikovsky, in his controversial works, proposed Akhenaten emulated the gods too closely, taking Meritaten as consort to birth an heir. Evidence is thin. A ring basil pairing their cartouches intimately, a statue fragment showing a young girl on the pharaoh's knee, her pose too familiar for father-daughter. But the real chill comes from Mekhetaten's tomb in the royal wadi. Wall scenes depict her deathbed, a child emerging from her form as Akhenaten and Nefertiti mourn. Egyptologists debate, is this a stillbirth, and whose? Zahi Hawass, in DNA studies from 2010, found no direct proof, but the implications linger. If Akhenaten fathered that child, it was incest doubled, sister-wife's daughter now bearing his seed. The court would have known. Priests murmuring in the halls, servants averting eyes as the young princess entered the royal bedchamber, linen veils whispering like accusations. This wasn't love, it was legacy, a desperate bid to forge a divine bloodline untouched by shadows. And the terror for those girls, raised in Amarna's isolation, groomed from birth to see their father as God incarnate. No escape, no refusal. Their bodies became vessels for the Aten's will, their childhoods sacrificed on the altar of eternity. But Akhenaten's desires didn't stop at blood ties. Enter Smenkhkare, the phantom co-regent who appears like a ghost in the records. Who was he? Brother? Son? Or as some theorize, Nefertiti herself in male guise, adopting a king's name after a rift. Reliefs from a tomb in Thebes show two figures, Akhenaten and Smenkhkare, embracing, faces close, almost kissing. In a culture where royal art was propaganda, this intimacy shocks. Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves suggests Smenkhkare was Akhenaten's younger brother, elevated to share the throne. But pop history documentaries, like those on Discovery Channel, spin it darker. A homosexual union, forbidden yet exalted under the Aten's gaze. No fertility rites here, just two kings, bodies aligned in solar symmetry. If true, it subverted everything. Pharaohs were meant to sire heirs, embody virility. Yet Akhenaten's art shows him effeminate, perhaps reflecting a truth. Medical theories abound. Marfan syndrome, with its elongated limbs and androgynous build, or Klinefelter's, adding feminine traits. A 2010 CT scan of the KV-55 mummy, possibly Akhenaten, revealed a pelvis wide like a woman's. No clear genital deformities, but enough ambiguity to fuel speculation. Was he intersex, navigating desires that transcended gender? Transgender in modern terms, embracing fluidity in a rigid world. These ideas come from authors like Ahmed Osman, who in Moses and Akhenaten links him to biblical figures, suggesting his abnormalities drove his heresy. In the palace, such a pharaoh would terrify courtiers. Whispers of nights, where Shmenkhkare joined Akhenaten under the stars, the Aten witnessing acts that blurred man and god, brother and lover. No ancient text confirms it. Egyptians veiled such matters. But the erasure speaks volumes. After Akhenaten's death, around 1336 BC, his successors moved fast. Tutankhamun, possibly his son by a sister or daughter, restored the old gods, renaming himself from Tutankhaten. Amarna was abandoned, its palaces crumbling to dust. Horemheb defaced Akhenaten's monuments, chiseling his name from cartouches. Ramesside kings labeled him the enemy, his 17-year reign a blank in king lists. Why such venom? Not just for monotheism, but for the personal horrors that tainted the throne. Incest created weak heirs, tuts, clubfoot, scoliosis, malaria, evidence of inbreeding's curse. If Akhenaten's practices spread rumors of depravity, they threatened Ma'at, the balance he claimed to uphold. Modern digs uncover the fragments. Gabanat el-Kurud, where monkey mummies hint at exotic rituals. Amarna letters, diplomatic pleas ignoring internal chaos. In 1891, Flinders Petrie unearthed boundary stelae showing family scenes, but with daughters' names overwritten. DNA from 2010 linked Tut to Akhenaten, confirming close kinship, perhaps father-son via incest. These revelations peel back layers, showing not an enlightened reformer, but a man whose desires destroyed. The women endured most. Nefertiti, vanishing from records, perhaps dead or disguised. Daughters like Ankhesenamun marrying Tut. Then their lives chains of royal unions. One letter from Ankhesenamun begs a Hittite prince for marriage, fearing solitude, echo of trauma. If this story grips you, if it reveals how faith and flesh collide in catastrophe, hit subscribe. For every like, we illuminate another shadow. But the Aten's legacy isn't just ruin. It's a warning. Power unchecked twists everything, even love, into terror. In Amarna's sands, archaeologists still find beads from daughters' necklaces, fragile as their fates. Akhenaten sought to erase the gods, but history erased him. Almost. Yet here we are, piecing together the puzzle because some truths refuse burial. The pharaoh who worshipped light left Egypt in darkness, his practices a stain that time couldn't fully wash away. Think on that. An empire of pyramids and sphinxes, felled not by invaders, but by one man's intimate apocalypse. You've journeyed through the veils, now carry the light forward. Lux in tenebris lucet? No. In Akhenaten's world, the light itself was the shadow.